So going into closing, I mean, traditionally, I always give the opportunity to whoever I'm interviewing to become the host of Boston Cage Podcast. The show is yours. The microphone is yours. Do you have any questions that you would like to ask me?
I would love to know where you get all your merch from because this is by far the best merch background I have ever seen. And if you're listening to me, it's really unfortunate, or listening to us, it's really unfortunate. The merch, man, it's amazing, and that's probably the top question that I have off the top of my head.
I think it goes back to me being a graffiti artist in Brooklyn, and it's like the more and more I get into marketing, is the more and more I'm realizing that I was born for it back in the '90s. And about graffiti is always about tagging. It's always about getting up. How many times can you put a sticker up? Where's the biggest bubble that you can put up? So really and truly, that's what I'm starting to do with my merch. It's like I'm not even marketing or promoting my merch. I'm just getting up. That's where I look at it. I'm just sticking a tattoo here, sticking a sticker here, and I'm
Right.
doing some graffiti here, left and right. So.
Where do you think the future of design is going? That's something
Wow.
that, and maybe that's a really open-ended question, and I should get a little bit more specific about it.
Yeah.
When I see the future of branding, and I actually think personal branding, I think probably within the next 5 years, almost everyone on social media should have their own personal brand, meaning like it's something that's representative of themselves. And I don't know whether or not that's, again, a little too egotistical, but just something that I can give you to be able to say, this is the core of who I am. And you can understand it completely from top to bottom, even though, like, inside of my companies, we have a really important focus on mission statement. So I think I said this at the beginning of the podcast. Our company's mission is we're trying to empower the world's transition towards remote work. That's what we've been doing for the past 11 years. And we focus on remote work advocacy, generousness, determination, adaptability, and passion inside of everything that we're doing. And I can give you like a paragraph breakdown of
Yeah.
all of those things. When we give people, when they join the company, we literally give them that poster and we get them to like learn it and breathe it. And I'm even thinking about doing that for myself, so that people can very clearly identify who I am as a person. And I think the best way to be able to do that is inside of like a personal brand document. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but it's one of those things that I've been throwing around on the top of my head.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I think we've seen it done repeatedly so many different times in history. And I think the landmark for our generation would be Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs himself was a brand. He was an asshole, but he was a brand nonetheless. Everything he touched potentially rotten and then turned back to gold, right? And then he had Apple as a brand, and then he had the iPhone or the iMac, all have their own individual brand identity as well. So if you're looking at brand continuity, to what you're saying is there's three aspects to every brand. You're gonna have to either have a product or service, and that needs to be a brand, needs to be able to tell a story. You as the individual need to tell your own individual story that overlaps with that product or service, and then whatever that other third item could be. In the case of Apple, it was the iPhone. Once the iPhone came out, like that brand exploded overnight because not everyone and their mom was telling the story of holding this device for the first time ever.
Mm. Yeah, I remember there was a talk with the Simon Sinek about Apple and getting to their why, which is Apple thinks differently. That's their concept,
Correct.
right? So that's the core of their brand. They think differently. They don't think like other people. They don't think like the suit and tie people. They think differently. And that's why they don't actually sell computers. And that's why they could sell a phone, or they could sell a car in the future, or they could sell a TV screen. It's because their brand encapsulates a much bigger concept than just, well, we sell computers. That's like the end of where they started. Where they started is we think differently as a company, and we want to actually disrupt people that think the same way as everyone else. And I love that concept. And I feel it feeds through it. Like, that is the value of that type of company. I'm sitting in front of a whole bunch of Apple products right now as an example. So, I'm one of those people that spend $5,000 on a computer when I can spend $1,000 for the same computer and get the same functionality out of it. But it's really going back to that core tenet of, I want to be associated with that type of a movement. And I think that's incredibly powerful. And I've been throwing around the concept of personal branding and saying, should that actually be as important as the time and energy that we put into our company branding and our company mission? Because we put a lot of time into it to be able to attract other people inside of our organization. And I was thinking it could actually explain a lot to my friends and family if I was like, hey, you know what? This is exactly who I'm about. Here it is. So that you can take that and you know me good and bad.
I totally agree with you. I mean, think about it. I mean, we brought up a couple different big names on the show, right? And Tim Ferriss is a good example of what we're talking about. Like, Tim Ferriss is like the ambience of branding, right? Like, what if you ask an average person, like, who is Tim Ferriss? What is his product? They're gonna be like, I think I heard his name, but they don't know what he sells or he markets or whatever. Versus we're talking about Steve Jobs. We all know that he's Apple, and I think to your point,
Mhm.
Tim could jump into any market sector and do anything that he wants to do because he is the brand. It's the Tim Ferriss
Right.
show. Again, he self-branded everything based upon him. So you could buy any one of his companies and rebrand it, and he'll still be who he is, and you're not going to be able to buy him as a name. Kind of like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan owns Joe Rogan, right? He is a personal
Right.
brand that's a multi-million-dollar brand at this point in time, and you can't. You could buy Joe, but Joe's going to come with the show. You're not going to be able to take Joe away from the show and still be successful without Joe attached to it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's a good way to think about it. I've been throwing this around in my head for a very long time, which is something like Time Doctor I can sell, but something like Leah Martin I can't sell, and that's probably a good and a bad thing because it's really nice to sell a business and walk away with a fat check. You can't really do that with a personal brand. But with that said, I think when I think about personal branding, I'm thinking about just identifying myself very clearly for other people so that people know what they can get. Like, I don't talk to people on social media. As an example, right? That's a perfect example of, it's just like, listen, I got to put my time into something else. I've got a clear mission and social media is not part of that mission. So, that's something that I think is a critical thing that I'm trying to deal with right now. But thanks for at least opening it up a little bit more for me, because now I've got a clearer idea. I think I'm going to go write a brand document right after I jump off this call.